I'm sure most of the people on this thread are familiar with the Teams Admin Center. But for those that aren't, it's pretty simple. We start with office.com, or I prefer to go to portal.office.com to get started. So portal.office.com will ask me to log in, and after I authenticate, then it takes me to this page, right? This is my office page, right? I'm logged in as the administrator of my tenant. So when I click on the waffle, depending on what license I have, I can see the apps that I have, okay? In this case, I went to administration, which pulled up this page, all right? So this is my Microsoft 365 Admin Center. And from here, I can administer licenses for my team members and things like that. Okay, so my active teams and groups, I can click on any one of these. Those are the teams, sorry. I can go to my users. And I can assign licenses here, okay, from this part. But what we want to deal with is the Teams Admin Center, which you will find, which I've already actually clicked on. Okay, and we have the landing page, which is a dashboard. Now, what's interesting here is you're going to get organizational information, some announcements, little links to explore Teams, but they've added this deploying Teams workload. So it creates a service management situation that you can deploy Teams. So let's say you're spinning up a new tenant for a customer and you want to deploy Teams. This will help create some documentation for you to use as a methodology. So that's relatively new. And this is all customizable, your dashboard. All right, we've got the activity log, user activity. Now, this is my personal tenant. I don't do a lot here, so you're not going to see a lot of activity. Okay, there's a little bit, right, over the last few days because I've been feverishly trying to create data for this demo, or for this walkthrough. But some other things here that you can go through, some links for you, and these will always be updated and always be changing. All right, so starting right at the top, we can administer our teams from here. We can see which teams we have. Yesterday there was a question about seeing individual activity in a team. You cannot do that, but you can see how active your teams are. And again, my tenant, very small. I only have a few teams, bunch of channels in there for some reason, bunch of team members in here for some reason, not sure why. Stuff I created a while ago. But you can create teams here, you can archive them, you can delete them. All right, so from an administrative standpoint, you don't have to be the owner, but as the global admin, you can administer these teams. Now then, you've got your settings for the teams that are created, what can and can't happen in here, okay? One of my favorite things about Teams is the email integration. The fact that you can email a channel. So you may have noticed in Outlook, there's a share to Teams button where you can take an email thread and then share it to Teams, and basically converts it from an email thread to whatever channel that you've put it in, and it becomes its own thread in that channel now, so that you can better have that conversation going on in Teams instead of constantly going back and forth with Outlook. So that's one of my favorite things, but you can control that here. You also heard Indranil talk about the different file storage types for Teams, not OneDrive, but the actual file storage other than SharePoint. So Citrix, Dropbox, Box, Google Drive, and Ignite are the ones we support. I just happen to turn them on because this is kind of a default tenant. Next, we have policies. It's rather straightforward. Can users create private channels? Can they create shared channels? Invite, blah, blah, blah. All right, so that's from within the team. What can people do inside of the team? We have templates now where we didn't before. Lots of templates. Okay, so definitely check out the templates, because what it does is it creates tabs for you and recommends apps that you may use for the different types of different type of team that you might create. So, for example, onboarding or organizing a help desk or something. Within the template policies, I'm sorry.
Scott, can I just chime in real quick there?
Yeah.
Those templates, I think some people were asking yesterday about organic growth of teams and how do we, avoid certain things. Well, those templates can help with that because a lot of the times people are learning how to use things, right? And they create a team and then, oh, you know what, it doesn't work. Let me try something different. And then they kind of, as they learn, they come to set things up in a certain way. But these templates can eliminate some of that, churn that happens with just the organic growth and people learning how to use Teams. So definitely look at those. They're very helpful. Like Scott said, they have pre-populated tabs and things of that nature that are going to help just guide your users and you guys as well in that process.
Yep. So I just happened to click on one called onboarding employees. So you can see the channels that I created, as well as recommended apps. And those could be automatically created. So your administrators are not constantly trying to figure out what to do. We put a bunch of them in there. So I think that's really cool. From a template policy standpoint, it's basically, are we allowing templates? How many are viewable and whatnot? And then update. So you notice there used to be under this, it used to be only manage teams, team settings, and policies. Now we've got the templates, template policies. We've got Teams update policy now. Okay, where you can follow the Office preview or not, or just have it straight enabled. So it's all new stuff. Teams upgrade, that's been there forever. We understand about that. Somebody was asking about coexistence modes. Okay, I've got this set at a higher level. All right, so we're not allowed to change it here, but you could manage that here. And then the app preference, I heard Indranil talk about side loading the Skype for Business meeting app. So, if you needed to join a Skype for Business meeting, so that's controlled all up in the Teams section there. Come on, go back up. Doesn't want to collapse. There we go. All right. So now in Teams, you can manage your users. All right. So in here, this is where you'll manage the different workloads that Teams users have. You're not assigning licenses in here, but you can manage the actual users and you can monitor them. So in my CQD CQA session that's coming up on Thursday, we will revisit this section because we can look at our calls. All right. And I'll have calls populated by then. But we can actually look at our calls. But we can do things like take a look at the account. We can edit emergency location. Here, if they have the phone number assigned, we can manage teams from here. We can assign the various policies from here. Okay, you can see which policies are assigned to a user, or by doing edit, you can assign them, or you could create a policy package, we'll talk about a little bit later, and assign it, which will automatically assign various policies. So that's pretty neat. So really a lot of good stuff here, especially from a CQA standpoint. Manage your guest access here. Okay, like you heard Indranil talking about, we also manage external access, so no real big changes there. However, Teams devices, we've added a bunch of stuff where it only used to be phones. Now we've got a lot of stuff. Not the least of which is the store. You can actually purchase product right from the Teams Admin Center, or what we call TAC. By clicking on Store, it'll allow you to go in and review devices and purchase them if you choose right from here. I think that's pretty amazing. All right. So many of you have heard about the differentiation between MTROA and MTROW. So Microsoft Teams Rooms on Android and Microsoft Teams Rooms on Windows. Okay, so as you can see, I do happen to have a Windows-based MTR. It's not plugged in right now. And I do have an Android-based. Okay, talks about the health status. All right, so the health status will do things like let you know that your app needs to be updated, whether it be the Android app or the Teams app, okay, just like the phones. So you can manage those here. So if I had any touch consoles, which I do, you can manage those. You can create profiles for configuration. So if we wanted to add one, these are the different things that you can do. Device lock, language, date, time, maximum room capacity, some themes. So lots of interesting things you can deal with from a configuration profile on your MTR. So we're adding more and more controls for your MTRs as time goes on. These are certainly new ones. We've broken out Surface Hub specifically. Unfortunately, I don't have one. Wish I did. But like, again, you could see a display name, username, device name, host name, manufacturer, model, etc. Panels. It took me a minute to realize what this was. These are the new Teams panels that are room, not control. I guess you could call them controllers. So think of the Crestron panel that sits outside of a conference room. Teams has a panel now that sits outside a conference room as well that you can do scheduling from and see the room's availability and things like that. I don't have one of those.
And I think it is a Crestron one.
Is it?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. I thought we had actually created them. All right. Phones. I have a bunch of phones, as you can see. Most of them are offline because there's no reason for them to be online. I only have 2 voice-enabled licenses that I pay for. So, but I do have a lot of phones that I will switch off. You'll notice admin, which happens to be this phone sitting right next to me here, is online and healthy because I updated it yesterday. And you can tell it's an audio code C450HD.
And just be aware that these phones will show up once the user signs in, essentially, and it registers the device in the Teams Admin Center.
You know, Alex, that's a good point. So there is a bug. So if I were to take this phone and switch it to, say, Alex's tenant and log in with my credentials on Alex's tenant, he won't see it. You have to actually remove the phone from your tenant before it registers with a new tenant. Otherwise, Alex won't be able to see or manage that phone. So if you've got phones that had been logged into a different tenant and you're trying now to manage them in your production tenant and can't see them, that's the reason. So you have to go back into your other tenant, remove the phone, and scrub it from the tenant before it'll show up. For some reason, there's a token or some hook that keeps it in the one tenant when you switch. I don't know what that's all about. All right. So phones are there. Displays, those are the like the Lenovo display, I think it's called.
ThinkSmart, is it?
ThinkSmart, yeah. It's got a camera, microphone, and a display on it. It was meant to just be a companion to sit on your desk to take the Teams workload off of your PC if you wanted, and that way you could have your meetings on the display versus on your web client. I thought I had one of those, but apparently I don't, or it hasn't been added in a while. And then finally, and you'll hear about this more tomorrow, SIP devices. So you heard Indranil say earlier, there are certain SIP devices out there that connect to Teams. Many of you know that there are a short list of IP phones, the 3PIP phones, right? Third-party IP phones that will connect. So Poly, Cisco, to name a couple. I happen to have a Poly downstairs that I connected, and it works very well. I mean, there's some nuances to it, obviously, because it is in SIP mode. It's generic. Its features are generic in nature, but you do log into it with your Teams user account, and it will authenticate. Now, keep in mind, these phones have been certified because you actually load a new software load into them. It is a SIP-based software load, but it has more of a Teams interface. So you can't just take your old Cisco phone and just plug it in. There is a provisioning URL that you have to put in, and then that will update.
And just to touch on that as well, most phones need to be on a specific firmware version for that to work as well.
Yep, good point. Here's where we control apps. So whether or not you can use store apps, third-party apps, things like that. No real changes here. But we have put in some setup policies for first-line worker education, what they can and can't do when it comes to apps. No real changes here. You can manage your conference bridges here. Okay, so we've still got the whole list of all of our shared numbers. You can create audio conferencing policies. You always were. Again, meeting policies, meeting settings, like we talked about, live event policies, live event settings. Alex will get into a little bit more of those. Okay, but those haven't changed. Messaging policies haven't changed. Voice, we've added a bunch of stuff and moved a bunch of stuff around. So, for example, resource accounts, call queues, and auto attendants used to be in their own location. They are now located under voice. So you've got phone numbers. We now have Operator Connect. Okay, here you can actually select and purchase phone numbers from the operator of your choice. You'll happen to notice I have 10 phone numbers from Pure IP, which they were very nice to let me have. So that's my Operator Connect. I do not have any direct routing set up, although I did at one time. So I think I tried to delete this SBC once and it wouldn't let me. I'll try again. See what happens. We'll see. It may come back.
Do you
All right,
have
so you'll
any
set up-
calling plan numbers, Scott?
I'm sorry?
Do you have any calling plan numbers? Any Microsoft numbers?
No.
Ah, okay.
No, I
'Cause
got rid of those. I got rid of those when I got Operator Connect.
There is a change to the way that you manage the numbers. Before, when you would do a either a purchase or report, you'd have to specify what type of number it was. Now, when you look in your phone number inventory there, you'll notice that the number provider says Pure IP right there. If it happens to be Microsoft and the number's not utilized, you can actually click on the number, and next to the edit button, there's going to be an option to change the phone number usage, I think is what it's. Yeah, change usage. So you can set it to either user, voice app, or whatever it is that you're going to use it for, conference.
Well, in this case, it's a Microsoft Conference Bridge number, but let me see if I can.
No, yours doesn't have it. But it's just one other quality of life change. It's next to the edit button.
Okay.
So you'd get an additional button there.
Oh, right. So if it was a Microsoft number, okay.
Correct.
Okay, it would show up over here. Okay, good point, Alex. Thank you. All right, so calling policies, old, these haven't changed. Call part, caller ID, dial plans. So you can do your number normalization here in dial plans. Now, we talked earlier about with a gentleman at the beginning of the day about E911 and how you can deal with that, and he was going to make some changes. So under call routing, there we go. Under call routing, you would create an emergency number plan. You would put in the string to match that's dialed, the dial mask, any PSTN usage if you have alternate routes for that. And that's how you would do that. And then your voice routing policies, again, all part of your standard voice routing. And then voicemail policies, same thing. What do you do with transcription on, off? Auto attendants, everybody's familiar with this. Call queues, right? Holidays, resource accounts. So they didn't change, they just moved, but they just all are under here now. But the big ones are Operator Connect and direct routing. Our location information has our emergency addresses. Okay, so here's a few that I have. And I know I'm running just a little bit late. I'll speed this up. Okay. Network topology. So when it comes to dynamic emergency routing, which we'll talk about on a later time, network topology, network locations all come into play. Okay. This is new, enhanced encryption. So are we going to let users control encryption or not? Policy packages. So these are where you can combine a bunch of policies in a package and assign the package rather than go through and individually assign them. And that's always been around. Here's some new stuff, the Teams Advisor. Okay, this will help you select the workloads to roll out in your organization. So this is just there to help you out. It ends up creating a form and a document for you to follow to help deploy Teams, channels, meetings, things like that. Very, very clever. Cancel. All right, and along with that are the network planner. Okay, so obviously I'm at my house. Okay, so I would add things like my address, how many users I plan to have at that site, the subnet at that site, whether or not I'm using ExpressRoute or connected to a WAN if I were in an office. Okay, what my current link capacity is. And then once I've entered that information, I can run the report. So here it just tells me the expected bandwidth for 2 users At my home, it's going to be about 7 meg. So this just basically helps you estimate the amount of bandwidth based on persona, right? So I didn't actually show persona. Here are your personas. So this really hasn't changed from Skype for Business. You get to tell, what workloads users are using based on their persona. So I'm not going to get into that, but that's all in here now. All this stuff is new. And then, of course, on Thursday, we'll get into the analytic reports. These haven't changed, but this notification thing is new. And I was looking at it earlier, and basically, if someone tries to submit an app or if a device changes state, you can actually get an alert in a channel. And so I've set these up for channel alerts, which I thought was pretty cool. So I'm just 3 minutes over. I just wanted to point out some of the new stuff and what was in there. Always check back in the Teams Admin Center where they're constantly making changes, and there's really no place where they tell you about the change. So if you're an admin, get in there, keep up to speed with it, keep up to date. It doesn't take long to click through to make sure that you're missing anything or not missing anything. And that was really the justification for this session. I know it was short. I had intended to go deeper into a few things. No reason to, because they'll be covered in later sessions. But that's pretty much it.